All right, good morning, buddy people. It is Tuesday, November 28th, very early in the morning. Okay, so today we are back in the prophetic books. Yesterday we were in the Old Testament. So today our daily reading is going to be Leviticus 1-2. Very exciting. We're starting a new Old Testament book. 2 Chronicles 27-28, Revelations 9-10, Psalms 107, and Proverbs 26. Okay, so that is our daily reading. So we are back in the Second Chronicles. Those of you that have not been following along, we're following the splitting of the northern and the kingdom of Israel into two. I've got a little chart here for you. It's handmade, so it's a little messy, but see if this will bring you up to speed. Okay, so we followed in First and Second Chronicles. The people wanted a king. God allowed them to have a king, so they crowned Saul king. After Saul, David followed Saul, and then Solomon, David's son, followed. And then there was the kingdom was split under his son Rehoboam. Rehoboam made some really stupid mistakes, and it caused the kingdom to be split into two, right? So two of the tribes came to the south, and this is the legitimate line of David. And then the other 10 tribes went up north, okay? So what you're seeing on this chart is Second Chronicles is following primarily the reigns of the southern kingdom. Everyone that's in parentheses are kings of the northern kingdom that were left out of First and Second Chronicles. So the goal of First and Second Chronicles was to encourage the people that were coming back from captivity. They were going back from the Babylonian captivity to rebuild Israel with the Jewish people that were still there. A lot of the people had been taken out. When the kings come in from different locations back then, they would take the groups of the people away and leave the poor of the land there, and they would disperse them throughout their territory. So like when Assyria came in, they would take some people captive, take them back. Usually it was the royalty and people with merchants, people with money. They would take them back, and they would leave the poor of the land there to continue to work and to bring tribute to the king of that took over. But so that had happened multiple times. So there was a diaspora, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but there was a lot of Jews that had been taken captive different kingdoms and throughout the world. And so now there was a group of them that were going back after the Babylonian captivity. And so this whole First and Second Chronicles, Ezra, the scribe, had taken all these documents, and then of course there was oral traditions, and they did a lot of memorization and rebuilt these stories to encourage and help them rebuild the nation of Israel with the people that were still there. Because the First and Second Chronicles is that history originally, right, when they originally built Israel. So they were going to redo that, and so that's what this whole focus was. So that's why when you see this chart, the gatherer of documents was not interested in the documentation that covered these kings. There's plenty of documentation in First and Second Kings. It's very tragic. But he didn't care about these guys. What he was trying to focus on was the good kings, the kings under King David, so that showing them how to do things, not how not to do things, right? So that's where we're at. So today we had followed Uzziah last chapter, and what's interesting, let me show you this one more time. So here we had left off with Uzziah, who had been a pretty good king. He had become prideful because God had really blessed him. And he had gone into the temple and gotten leprosy. So then there was a co-regency between him and his son Jotham. And so then look at all these kings. So here in what we're going to cover today, we're going to see two kings of the northern kingdom, the good king, or the king Davidic line. And then over here, you've got all these kings that are ignored. They're not even mentioned until we get down to Pekah. So we saw this guy at one point. None of these guys are mentioned. Then we get down to Pekah, and Pekah is mentioned here in chapter 28. So it's just kind of interesting. All right, so chapter 27, Jotham begins his reign. So it says, Second Chronicles, chapter 27, verse 1. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok, and he did what was right in the sight of the Lord. according to all that his father Uzziah had done. And then in parentheses it says, although he did not enter the temple of the Lord, because that was Uzziah's big thing. Screwed him up at the very end, right? He became prideful, entered the temple of the Lord and was burning incense before the Lord, and the priest just had a nervous breakdown, and of course then leprosy broke out on him. So anyway, so it screwed up at the end of his reign. But then at the last sentence of that paragraph says, but still the people acted corruptly. So you see there that we talked earlier about the reign of Jehoram all the way back here, how he had married a daughter of the northern kingdom. He married Ahab and Jezebel's daughter. Her name was Athaliah, and how it brought in just this perversion in the southern kingdom, the Davidic line. And so you see that influence is still permeating the southern kingdom, because it says right here that but the people still acted corruptly. So that originally goes back to her. He built the upper gate of the house of the Lord, and he built extensively on the wall of Ophel. Moreover, he built cities in the mountains of Judah, and in the forests he built fortresses and towers. He also fought with the king of the Ammonites and defeated them. And the people of Ammon gave him in that year 100 talents of silver, 10,000 cores of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. The people of Ammon paid this to him in the second and third years also. So this was a group of people that they were always going back and forth. Sometimes they had control over them, sometimes they didn't. So that was the way it was around that area. Sometimes the people were under their control and sometimes they weren't. So at this point, he had them under his control for 3 years. So Jotham became mighty because he prepared his ways before the Lord his God. So that is why he became mighty. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all his wars and his ways, indeed they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. Okay, so again, like I mentioned in all the other stories here in Second Chronicles, the chronicler is always telling you where he's getting his data. So these were, it says, indeed they are. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham and all his wars and his ways, indeed they are written in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. So those were documents that anybody could find. You could go to the priests if you had the ability to read, and you could get those documents and you could see where he gathered all this information, right? So he's always being very careful to cite his sources, which is important. So then it says, he was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. So Jotham rested with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. Then Ahaz, his son, reigned in his place. So it's very short. Jotham's chapter here is very short, but you're seeing a very positive story about Jotham. It mentions his mother. It's very interesting because now when we're going to go read about in chapter 28, Ahaz, his son, they don't even mention his mother. Ahaz is a very, very wicked king. And everybody knows that mothers have an influence on their children. And so, fathers do too, for sure. But this Ahaz, there's no mention of his mom. So I think that she played a major role in his wickedness. All right, so I'm just going to stop it right here. I'm going to go into chapter 28 next, second video. So just remember, as we're reading Second Chronicles, it's very clear walking with God plays an important role personally and nationally, right? It influences not only your personal life and everyone that you have influence over or with, and your family, but also nationally. So anyways, that's all I have for you. Remember, Jesus Christ is the only way to the Father, right? You can't get there by good works. You can't get there by thinking good thoughts. The whole story of the Bible is about how we need redemption because of what happened in the Garden of Eden with Adam. So that's why Jesus came. And so all you have to do is say, Jesus, I give my life to you, and you're in. That's it. Period. End of story. You cannot lose your salvation, but seek him. Once you do that, just begin to read the Word of God. Get a good study Bible. I'm always on your case of get a good study Bible. I've used Nelson for years, Nelson Study Bible. The Bible Step app, STEP app, is incredible. You can look at one word and go back and see everywhere that's listed. So anyways, number 2's on the way. Peace.